And let me see. This is a little bit on the loud side. This is just to have some gameplay footage in the background for you guys to watch. This is not particularly relevant because this is just something that I was doing this morning with Captain Thick over here. As you can see, he has a dark suit that I got through one of those SG scratch tickets, which I actually became a lot more open to the store of PSO2 because of the fact that it has the scratch ticket system. I actually was like, you know what, this is not that bad. This is not that bad because you can get some interesting stuff through the store, like the costume that I'm using right now. I actually kind of like it. So, but still, it still has stuff in there that I most definitely don't agree with. Like you have XP boosters and all of that stuff, which is never really a good thing to have on a store. But as per usual, we'll start by talking about the visuals. And do keep in mind that this is a recording and we're on a live stream, so the visuals are not going to be properly represented. In my opinion, the visuals of PSO2 are actually pretty good. I think that overall they're pretty satisfying. I mean, I'm going to specifically be talking about New Genesis, not really the original PSO2, which is also entirely available. If you get New Genesis, you can just like take whatever character you create and take it into PSO2, and it works because I've tested that out, and it was actually cool because I had never played PSO2, and I could actually see myself potentially playing a bit of the original PSO2 if I had been a little bit more gripped by New Genesis, which I was in some aspects, but I also wasn't in others. But anyways, the visuals and animation of New Genesis are pretty good. Particularly the animations. You guys know that I'm a sucker for animations, and I think that they did a pretty decent job. I played a Tector with Force subclass because I just liked the animations on that particular weapon. It was mostly about animations than anything else. And I thought that class was pretty fun because you can swap like elements and whatnot. The character creation is also really fun. Although you will end up making Frankenstein monsters if you mess around with it too much, as I'm sure some of you guys remember. The one time that I clicked the female outfit and suddenly my male character had boobs, which was kind of weird and very much unintended. But they'll let you do that kind of stuff in PSO2, so go to town if that's what you want to do. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with your characters. Like I was trying to go for like a dwarven character. He still ended up being a lot taller than I would like. But, I still think that it was a cool looking character. And I think that it was fun to actually make it. So there's tons of customizability when it comes to creating a character. And then on top of that, there's also the fact that the armor that you actually see on your character, it's like the black suit that you see on my character right here, is entirely cosmetic. The hat, entirely cosmetic. There's no stats associated with it at all. So that's kind of like how they make a lot, I would assume, how they make most of their cash shop money is by selling you cosmetic outfits that you can change around. And not just outfits themselves, but there's also accessories. So like if you see my character and you pay attention, you'll notice that he's got like glasses and a hat. Those are two accessories. You can have like 6 of them, and you can completely change the position where they go. So like the hat right now is in my head, but you could actually just put the hat in my hands. You could put the hat in my legs. You can put the hat in your crotch. I'm not kidding. You can literally put the hat anywhere, and they'll let you do it. They don't care. You can put accessories anywhere, and you can do some really creative stuff with it, which I think is kind of cool. But you're obviously going to have to swipe if you want to have some of the best stuff. But they do give you the daily SG scratch, which I think is cool. Like even if you're playing just free to play right now, I still think it's cool because you still get stuff. Like we got haircuts out of it. We got like 2 super rare outfits. And it still gives you things to interact with all of the character customization that you can do, even though in the store it's like they give you a little bit like this, and then in the store you can just like tons and tons and tons and tons of other customization that you can go and get. Now, There are some performance issues. I don't know if that's what you guys were saying in chat, because right now I have chat like super minimized. I'm focusing on my notes that I have here. But there are some performance issues. It doesn't run particularly well on my 2060. But it is still playable, so it's not really a huge problem. You guys can see how well it runs. This is running at 2560 by 1440p, and it can still get to 60 FPS. Depending on what is happening on screen, of course, if you're fighting bigger bosses or more mobs, sometimes it can get a little bit slower. I also had to play without SSD because my SSD is full. My computer's really showing its age. But, you know, besides the very first load that you get when you're loading into the world for the very first time, which is really long, particularly if you're running it on a regular hard drive, aside from that loading, all of the other loading screens were fine. Not really a problem. Besides just the cosmetic stuff, like I said, they're also selling EXP boosts. And if I remember correctly, there's also something in the store which is increased drop rate chances of rare items, which I'm not a huge fan of. But again, it is important to remember this is a full free-to-play game. So they're going to get your money somewhere, not just in the cosmetic section. They'll sell EXP stuff for you. They'll sell the drop rate items, and there's other things in there. I didn't check every single thing of the store because there's just so much to look at when you're looking at free-to-play game stores. But just those two things were the ones that I would consider to be more egregious. But that would not be the thing that would cause me to kind of... I'm a little bit done with the game at this point, at least for the foreseeable future, depending on whether or not some stuff changes, which we'll get into a couple of in a couple of minutes here. But that was not the store was not the thing that kind of made me felt like, you know, I had my fun. I'm kind of good on it for now. But you know, besides just like the action combat that you're seeing on screen, which I think the combat is pretty decent, there's also an extensive class system with skill trees for all different classes. There's a multi-classing system as well. So, like I said, I play a Tector, but my subclass is, I think it's called Force, which is the mage. And then I can go get skills from the mage that synergize with my skills from Tector, and it's actually pretty cool. It lets you... it lets you create like more unique characters. I'm sure that if you start really min-maxing to some extent, you eventually end up having, you'll end up having, no, you need to have this combo with this class and whatever. But while you're still exploring, I think it's a nice system to have to play around with the classes, and it increases the complexity of builds that you can do. And then there's also the weapons. The weapons also go through a multitude of upgrades. You can then awaken the weapons, gives you additional buffs and stuff like that. And on top of it, there's a multi-weapon system, which is also really cool. I'm not really using a multi-weapon here. It's just a regular singular weapon. But like I could combo this weapon with a gun if I wanted to. And then I would be able to use skills from both this weapon and the gun weapon. And you can do some very interesting combinations with that actually change the way that you play the game. For my class specifically, because I'm talking just about the experience from my class. So, with all of that, there's also the fact that the traversal of the game is really, really good. And this is something that I think is really important. I feel like a lot of games don't pay enough attention to traversal. And basically in this game, you got like a double jump, then on top of the double jump, you have a wall jump, and then on top of that, you have a glide. And you have a really fast sprint. So navigating through the world and exploring always feels good. And I should emphasize that traversal is actually the reason that I stopped playing Genshin Impact. Because I was actually having a lot of fun in Genshin Impact, but I could not deal with how slow and sluggish the traversal felt. Traversal felt completely atrocious in Genshin Impact. And in this game, traversal is a joy. Like, I could spend hours upon hours just running through the map, jumping all over the place, gliding, because the visuals are cool, the animations are good, and on top of it, the traversal feels great. So it is fun to just like run around in the map and explore. And there's a lot of activities for you to take part in, doing PSO bursts, doing daily activities, weekly activities, all of these things. So then, now you ask, okay, so why do you feel like you're done with it? The reason I'm done with it is because progression is slow. And maybe that's because of my lack of experience. Maybe people who are more familiar with the systems of PSO2, maybe they can progress significantly faster. You know, woulda, shoulda, coulda. But for me, progression has been excruciatingly slow. And the way that they gate the content is based around power level, which is kind of system very similar to like your gear score. And power level is basically how many skills do you have? What level of upgrade is your weapon at? What level of upgrade is your actual armor at, which is not the cosmetic armor. It's these 3 things that you equip, which are basically like chips that increase your armor values. Like, what level are those? And they do an amalgamation of like all of the skills that you have, all of your gear and all of that stuff, and they put that all together and they give you a number. And the first time that they gate you, they're like, I think it was like 950, and I remember being at like 800 on the score, and they're like, okay, so now go be 950. And I seem to remember like it took me something around 5 hours or something like that, trying to figure out all of the stuff that I was going to be doing in order to get to 950. And so I got to 950, and I got to do another quest to advance the main story or whatever. And shortly after that, they're like, okay, now you need to be 1,100. And I was like, okay, dude. And that is the reason why it just became too much of a grind for me. It's like, could I get it? Yeah, I could do it if I was just playing PSO2 and literally nothing else. I could totally get to 1,100 and, and keep on playing and then go to the next quest, and probably the next one they'd give me like 1,500 or something like that. And I feel like that really breaks up the pacing of the game, and you end up a little bit lost in the world. Like, okay, so what am I supposed to be doing? I guess I'll just go here and kill monsters until I level up, because your level also counts towards the power level of your character. So I guess I'll go level up, because I remember being like level 8 or whatever it was, and I was finding these towers that you find throughout the world, which I think are like Trainia, whatever they're called. They're the things that you go and you perform an activity, and then they give you a skill point, because skill points also increase that power level of your character. So I was like, okay, so I need to get as many of these skill points as possible. But everything that I found was for level 15, and I was level 8, and I couldn't do anything. So it's like, I'm trying to raise my level, I'm exploring the world, and exploring the world is fun, but I keep finding these things that I actually can't do. So it's like, there's tons of things to do, but you need to grind. You need to go grind to level up. And that's the point where I started to feel like, yeah, that EXP booster would come in handy right now, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would, for us to level a little bit faster. It's not going to be something that is going to have like a massive effect on your character, because, I think right now the level cap is 20 or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. So it's not like you'll be able to level up beyond the cap. And like I said, I could keep just grinding and keep leveling because the game is enjoyable, but I want to play other games as well, and this kind of like conflicts with that, because if you want to play without boosts and without all of that, I feel like you're going to need a significant time investment to get through this massive grind that you have to go through. And then there was also another thing that was kind of weird that happened to me earlier today, which is I got in and there was a cinematic when I got into the game, because I got into earlier today to record this footage so that I would have some background footage while we're talking about this, and they gave me this cinematic where they're saying, we have these mining things and they're going to be attacked by the dolls, and it made it seem like they wanted me to participate in this thing, and I was like, wonder if this was something that was patched into the game, because my game updated before I played. I was like, this might be like a new activity or something that they're adding for me to actually take part in. That could be interesting. So I wait until that activity starts, and then I go to the place where the activity was happening, and nowhere in the screen, in the message that popped up, in the map, in the place nowhere did it say, you need this power level to be able to participate. It didn't say anywhere that I could find. So I was like, okay, I'll just sit here for 15 minutes and wait for this to get started. so that I can play it and try out this activity, because it seemed like it was one of those urgent missions or whatever. So I sit there for 15 minutes, and then when it comes time to queue, I press the button to queue for the activity, and the game just straight up tells me, oh yeah, you need like, I don't know, 1200 power level or whatever. And I was like, okay, great, thanks. And you know, and that was also one of those points where I was like, okay, I get what this game is. I think the game's really fun. I like the combat. I like all of this stuff. But the amount of grind that they expect you to do right now in order to enjoy the game, I feel like is maybe a little bit on the unreasonable side if you are a free-to-play user. I don't know if like maybe that gets better if you use one of the boosts in the store or whatever. But right now I feel like it is too grindy, and it requires, even though there's a lot of stuff for you to do in the world, you know, the most efficient way of doing stuff is basically what I'm doing in this footage right here. You run through the world, you kill enemies marked by this E thing to try and trigger a PSE burst and get a bunch of rewards out of it. Like, that's kind of like what you end up doing, what I at least end up doing most of the time, to see if I can get to that mystical level 15 so that I can go do all of those towers that will then give me more skills in order to increase my power level so that I can continue the main quest. And, you know, I burned out. And the thing is also, it's like, I could do this. It's not like it's super hard to get. It's just time consuming. But then I got to thinking, okay, so they're going to be adding more content to this game later down the line, because one of the complaints that I always hear about New Genesis is that it doesn't have that much content. And I haven't really complained about that myself, but you go to Steam reviews, that'll be like one of the main complaints that people have, that the game does not have enough content. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, so they're going to be adding more content down the line. I think you guys even told me during the stream that they're going to be doing something this winter. And I'm thinking, is the new content going to have the same gating systems with power level, where like I'm going to be leveling up now and I'm going to be putting in this effort to level my character, the power level, do all of those things. And then the new content comes and like, okay, now you need 1600 power level. And I'm just going to be like, oh no. And I'm just going to go do the same content over and over and over again to try and level up, to try and do the towers, to try and meet the power requirements again. Is like, that doesn't seem particularly appealing to me. That's not to say, I want to make sure that people understand, that's not to say that I think the game is bad. I think the game is grindy, and a little bit grindier than I'm willing to put into it to get the full benefit of the game, which is fine. Because like, if you're willing to do the grind, I'm sure that there is fun here to be had. Because not even just with regular New Genesis, but because I'm struggling so hard to do these jumps. Jesus Christ, just looking at this footage now. Because I wasn't running. I should have been running. But that's also because I've been playing Bless Unleashed, and part of my muscle memory went to that game. So, yeah. But, you know, it's just one of those things. For me, I don't think that this is going to be for me in the long run. But I do appreciate that there's going to be people that will enjoy it. And if you like the gameplay, you'll probably enjoy it. And you'll probably think it's fun. And if you're someone who's actively playing it, good. I hope you enjoy it a lot. I was talking about, before I got distracted with the footage, I was talking about how there's also the base PSO2 content in there, which I believe is a significant amount of content. So even if you run out of content on New Genesis, you can still go back and play the old one with the same character, which, like I said, also seems like it would be a fun experience. But to me, it's like I was much more interested in New Genesis, so the old PSO thing was more like a side thing for me. So it's not as an attractive prospect when I think about all of the stuff that I'll be expected to do when they launch new content for New Genesis. So yeah. Another one, just another minor criticism that I would have is that I was a little bit disappointed with their controller implementation when I realized the limitations of it later down the line. And I would advise anyone that is playing this on PC, if you can, go for keyboard and mouse, because it'll be a lot easier to play like the more complex classes and stuff like that, because otherwise you're going to be doing the claw, going back and forth with the D-pad to trigger the abilities that you see on the bottom screen there. And with the PC, you basically just have to press a number, you're good to go on the keyboard. So I've been playing with controller, and the controls are fine. It's just PC is much more effective at that stuff. But yeah. So those are my thoughts on Phantasy Star Online 2. I'm probably going to be done with it for now. But if you enjoy it, good. If you like the gameplay, you might enjoy it. Just bear in mind there is that grindy aspect of it with the power level and all of that, and that's kind of like what is the biggest turnoff for me. Because, like I said, I like the action, I like the combat, I like just about everything on it, but I found the progression to be really, really slow. And it could be a me thing. Maybe I'm being too impatient, whatever. But, you know, I'm also down for checking it later down the line, see if they streamline that aspect of it a little bit. Maybe I missed, you know, the level 10 towers or something and I just didn't find any. Or maybe there aren't any, I don't know. But I did run all over the map. Like, even off stream, I explored a lot off stream looking for more of those training towers, and I couldn't find them. Maybe I should have Googled that stuff. But I wanted to actually just have the game experience, so I don't know. Could be my fault, but either way, I think it is a fun game, but I'm kind of done with it for now.